Literally 4 a.m. in the morning. I could not sleep because the crickets were cricketing all night, just chirping outside of my window. I'm like, oh my God, is it cricket season? What are they doing? Do I want to know though? Probably not. Well, I'm glad somebody can have some fun because, girl, I was awake. Hi guys, and welcome to another true crime story time, where I tell you one true crime case that was solved using forensic science, all while doing, that's right, my makeup. Today's video will be featuring the Lunar New Year palette from BH Cosmetics. Yeah, it's been a minute since we've heard about BH and I completely forgot about them, but I absolutely love this palette. Hi to all of my new subscribers, and to my old subscribers, thank you guys so much for your continued support. You guys already know the drill. The comment section is a privilege. Don't fuck it up. Now let's get into today's case. I look like a mop. So this story all takes place in the year 2005 in San Antonio, Texas, where 21-year-old Michael Andrade lived and attended school. He attended school at St. Mary's University. Let me know if you guys are from this area and if you went to this school or not. I love hearing the connections to real life people to the cases that I'm telling, so let me know. Now, Michael, he was a pre-med student studying to become a doctor. He loved helping people and was very passionate about it. He was a very diligent, hard-working young man. In fact, Michael chose to live off campus so he could place more focus on his studies. He just really wasn't into the party scene in life. From what I understand, he was more into, actually studying at school, which surprising is what you're supposed to do. I mean, it's not the only thing. I feel like when you go to college, it's also to make connections, and that's probably, in my opinion at least, the biggest benefit from going to university is that you get to make connections for the future. I mean, outside of the education that you receive, just making connections and building like a community of people that you know who are going to be the next set of healthcare professionals in that industry or whatever industry that you're studying in. That's always great as well, because when you leave college, the first thing you're going to be looking for is a job to support yourself, or you're going to be trying to go down your career path. And if you know people, it's going to be a lot easier for you to climb that ladder. Why did I just sound so Southern? It's going to be easier for you to climb the ladder a lot sooner than if you didn't really know anybody and they weren't aware of, how good you were at your field of study or interest. Michael decided to live off campus so that he could spend more time focusing on his studies. And in fact, the apartment complex that he chose to live in was not that far away from the university anyway. With his family's encouragement and support, Michael was well on his way to achieving his dream of becoming a doctor. The future was looking very bright for young Michael until, you always know there's an until. On the morning of February 17th, 2005, workmen at Michael's apartment building was doing some work outside. I think they were gardening or something. That is when they saw smoke coming from a window from one of the units in the apartment building. They immediately dialed 911 and the fire department was dispatched to the location. So in the meantime, while they were waiting for the fire department to show up, the guys ran up to the unit to check and see if anybody was inside who needed help. They tried to get inside of the unit and the door was unlocked. Unfortunately, when they opened the door, so much smoke hit them in the face that they were unable to enter the unit. It just kind of like overwhelmed them and they had to retreat. They could not do anything, which I think is the best thing anyway, because you're not the fire department. So I get wanting to help, but in those sort of situations, it's best to just let the fire department, the professionals, do their job. When the fire department arrived on scene, they were met with the workmen from the apartment building who led them up to the unit, and they were able to contain whatever small fire was left. There wasn't a lot of the fire left, actually. There was mainly just like soot and smoke. Once they contained the fire and was able to get all the smoke out and enter the unit, that is when they discovered the lifeless body of a young man. His hands had been bound behind his back using what appeared to be the bed sheets, because they noticed that the bedding was ripped up and it just looks like pieces of it looked like pieces of torn cloth had been used to tie his hands. The man was just wearing his boxer shorts and a t-shirt, so he was undressed. Based on the crime scene, it appeared like he probably was in the bed asleep, and it appeared as though he had been strangled to death. Actually, the bed sheets were also used for that as well. An ID belonging to the victim was located, and they were able to positively ID the body. The victim was 21-year-old Michael Andrade. There was no sign of forced entry. However, there was a couple of electronical items missing from the home, and they were able to tell this because of where the soot had fallen. There seemed to be like indentations in the soot where items would have been that were just not there anymore. The entertainment system speakers and wires had been dismantled and were hanging out where it looked like something like some sort of electronical system should have been connected to it, but it was gone. According to investigators, there was an area on the computer desk in the room. There was a clear demarcation of where a computer would have sat. The entire desk was covered in soot, except for the area where the computer was missing. And whoever had taken the computer had obviously taken it after the fire. Otherwise, the soot, if they had taken it before, there would be soot over the entire desk. So that was really interesting to investigators as well. Now, before investigators even got a clear chance to run a full investigation, arson investigators came in and did their investigation first. Now, if you don't know anything about arson investigators, cool, because neither do I. And we're about to learn something right now by asking OpenAI on Google. Let's ask Google. What is an arson detective? An arson investigator is a law enforcement professional who investigates the causes of fires and explosions. They combine skills from both forensic and detective work. Cool beans. They do things like document fire scenes with photos and diagrams and evidence collection. They determine the origins and spread of the fire. They determine if criminal activity was involved. So basically that's what they're there for, to determine if there was any foul play. They're usually called in when a fire is suspicious. Based on the evidence, the arson investigators determined that the fire had been set in 3 different locations. There were 3 different points of fire inside of the unit. Whoever set those fires really wanted to burn that place down. Something that they thought was rather odd was that neither accelerant or any kind of lighter fluid was used to start the fires like in most cases. So the first fire was set on an accent chair that was sitting in between the kitchen and dining area. The second fire was set in the bedroom at the foot of the bed. And the last fire was started on the bedroom closet floor. Arson investigators sent all of the evidence they had collected from the crime scene to investigators working on Michael's case. Initially, crime scene investigators didn't find any forensic evidence pointing them to a possible suspect. The damage from the fire and the soot made it very difficult for them to really see anything. An autopsy was performed on Michael Andrade's body, and the medical examiner found a significant amount of soot on his back. It was as though he had been laying face down when he died. The lack of smoke in his lungs led forensic experts to determine that he had died before the fire had even been started. Because if he had died after the fire was started, there would have been some smoke in his lungs due to him inhaling in oxygen. He would have gotten some sort of smoke in his lungs, but he didn't have anything. That means he had stopped breathing. Y'all, I know it's looking crazy, but I promise you we're gonna be looking good. momentarily. Cause of death was determined strangulation by bedsheet. Just as detectives had suspected, he had died due to the strangulation from the bed sheets. They found little pieces of the bed sheets all over his neck, not to mention the ties around his wrists. Forensic experts then found something very bizarre on the body. They found fiberglass insulation. Now, this was particularly odd because the fire hadn't caused any actual structural damage. None of the walls had been burnt or anything like that, only the items that were set to fire. So how had the material gotten on his body? It was just so weird. Now, investigators thought it was very unlikely for him to have the fiberglass on him and not have any of the apartment burnt. They thought that that was really weird, and I would have to agree with them. That's kind of weird. Could the perpetrator have deposited it on him during the attack? Being there was no sign of forced entry and Michael was actually found in his boxers unclothed, detectives theorized that he may have known his attacker. Of course, he had to be comfortable enough to let them in while he was undressed. Unless you're just that type of person where, you know, you walk around naked. Some people like that though. Some people, you come to their house, they take off their clothes, they be walking around naked. You like, oh, wait, hold on, Wardy. So they questioned everyone in Michael's circle, friends, family members, classmates, co-workers, whoever was in Michael's circle, they questioned everyone. Now, family members and friends claimed that Michael had no known enemies. According to them, they had no idea who would want Michael dead. But with further investigation, police learned that that wasn't exactly the case. Michael had a long-term girlfriend who was upset with him at the time. She was very, very upset with him. In fact, it sounded like they were about to break up from what I gathered. 22-year-old Lily Macias. She was a fellow classmate and student at the university. Now, Lily and Michael, they had a somewhat tumultuous, I can never say that word, tumultuous, not tumultuous. I don't know why I keep putting an R in there, but anyway, Lily and Michael had a somewhat tumultuous relationship. There were reports from people who knew them that said that they would bicker a lot, which, I mean, who doesn't? Well, actually, in my new relationship, we don't bicker really at all. But I've known relationships in the past where, you know, you'd bicker. You'd bicker. Ooh, that went on kind of nice. Ooh, okay. Okay, Maybelline Fit Me, I forgot all about her. And she's coming back to save the day because I ran out of my regular concealer. This is all I have right now. And she came through for me. She came through, okay? Wake me up, okay? Girl, we hear you, we see you. And when investigators checked Michael's phone records, they found a voicemail from Lily that was sent to him the morning of his murder. And let's just say the voicemail was not in the kindest tone. So she left this voice message around 8 a.m. in the morning, and the voice message pretty much said that she wanted to end the relationship with Michael. She did not want to continue, and that she was very angry with him. So as you can see, police thought that this might be a possible motive to want to harm him. And law enforcement always looks into the person closest to the victim anyway. So, I mean, it just made sense that they would check into her. Enforcement always looks into the person closest to the victim, as there is a large percentage of, wow, that is a lot of loose powder on my chin. Okay, gonna dust that off. As I was saying, law enforcement always looks into the person closest to the victim, as a large percentage of homicides and murders are due to intimate partner violence. Plus, they like to eliminate family members and loved ones who might be innocent up front. You know, they don't want to take them through that entire thing when they're already mourning the death of a loved one. It's kind of like a shitty thing to do, but you also got to be careful because some of these people didn't cause the death of the loved ones, which is the reasons why they look into those people first. It's just so they can focus their attention on the real killer and they're not like wasting their time harassing family members and loved ones of the victim. So investigators bring Lily down to the police station for questioning, and she is very cooperative and very forthcoming, and she tells them all about her relationship with Michael. I mean, she admitted that they were having problems and that she was breaking things off with him. But she also appeared just as shocked and heartbroken by his death as everyone else. And she told investigators that she had nothing to do with his death and that she would never harm him. When they questioned her whereabouts the day of the murder, she said she was working at her part-time job. And she did provide an alibi who confirmed and corroborated her story that she was at work. This alibi also gave detectives a handwritten statement saying that, you know, she was there at work. And just as quickly as Lily became a suspect, she was eliminated. Wow, bro, we not gonna talk. These brows are crazy right now. Me and my brows, y'all know the journey. If you've been here with me for a while, you know the journey of my brow. Girl, throwing some bars today. Oh my God. How do you entertain yourself? I don't know how people get lonely. I mean, I've only ever been lonely with other people. I've never been lonely alone. Like, do you not know how to entertain yourself? Because I do. Lily also gave police permission to search her apartment and her vehicle. I mean, she was very cooperative. With no solid leads or new suspects, the case was at a standstill. Until, you know, there's always that until, girl. I told you, wait for it, wait for it. Gotcha. I'm a fool. Until Michael's sister told investigators that Michael was creeped out by a man who had recently moved into his building, or at least the guy was like hanging around his building all the time. Michael said that the guy would just talk to him. He didn't do anything bad or wrong. He was just holding conversation, but it was just something about him that really gave Michael the creeps. He didn't get a good vibe about that guy. And you know how you get that? I don't know if y'all have that, but I have that on a very high intense level. And that's why I'm an introvert. Because, girl, I'll be feeling things and I'll be like, people be looking at me and I cannot hide it either. If I feel something, I feel it and I can't hide it. I'll be looking at you like this. And people be like, are you okay? And I'll be looking at, I'm fine. Sometimes I'll be picking up the heebie-jeebies off these people. I'm not even playing. That's why I'm like, I had to bring my sage, y'all, because I'm not playing with you. According to Stephanie, the guy would just talk to Michael. Nothing crazy. He didn't do anything bad or dangerous or threatening in any way towards Michael up front. But Michael just didn't feel right around the guy. He just got a really bad vibe. He said that the guy made him feel very uneasy and that his character was off. Now, Michael, he never reported the man or ever physically identified him to his sister. And so police really didn't have anything to go off of. Like, they had no profile of this guy to even go off of. So they didn't know where to look. It could have been anybody. They didn't even know if the guy lived in the apartment complex, but they thought to start close by. So they thought to start with the items that were taken from Michael's apartment, hoping if they found the missing items, it would be able to link them to a possible suspect. Maybe he sold the items and they could find who he sold them to. They needed to narrow things down and fast, or it would be decades before they could even solve the case. To narrow down the suspects, investigators sought help from the public, and they teamed up with Crime Stoppers. And after just 4 days of Michael's case being broadcast, a tipster came forward. A tipster came forward with some very enlightening information. They told investigators that the assailant had entered the apartment through an attic crawl space and not the window or front door, like detectives had originally suspected. And they were also able to give detailed information about the stolen computer. They were able to tell investigators what was on that computer, which hadn't ever been released to the public. It's crazy because throughout this case, they never tell us who the tipster was and where that information came from, which really bothers me. Like, I'm like, who was the goddamn tipster? Now it's time to go into the palette. But anyway, back to the story. I'm not going to slam them because people seem to get really agitated when I do it. So investigators returned to the scene of the crime, and just as the tipster had told them, they found a small hole in Michael's bedroom closet ceiling that led to a crawl space. As they continued to examine the crawl space, they discovered that someone could gain access to the other units in the building through that crawl space. The fiberglass insulation was only matted between Michael's apartment and apartment 1002. According to crime scene investigators, none of the other installations to the other units had been disturbed. Just Michael's. Definitely not a coinkydink. When investigators went to apartment 1002 to question the tenant there, they were met with a very small framed woman, 32-year-old single mom, Maria Solis. Maria lived in unit 1002 with her 3-year-old son. During interrogation, Maria denied ever knowing Michael Andrade. She said she didn't know who they were talking about and that she didn't have anything to do with the crime, that she was unaware that he even lived in her building. I guess she said it was because she never saw him there. Of course, law enforcement found that to be strange and they didn't believe her. So they obtained a search warrant and took a few items from her home to be analyzed by forensic scientists. They confiscated her vacuum and some articles of clothing that they found in her hamper, particularly a pair of men's blue jeans that they thought was a little suspect because she said she didn't have anybody else living with her and then it was only her 3-year-old son and she didn't know. Forensic scientists took apart the vacuum to study it first. They found a very distinct polyester thread around the spoolie. The polyester fibers were intertwined with cotton fibers. The fibers had a unique dye color that gave the thread its characteristics and strengthened it a bit. When compared to the fibers found on Michael's body and at the crime scene, they discovered it matched. You ever get that feeling like you don't know what you're doing, but you're trying? It was the same exact thread as the thread from Michael's bed sheets that were torn and used to strangle him during the attack. In addition to its color, the pattern of the threads also matched. As they searched apartment 1002, they discovered keys to a Ford truck and a video camera. With further investigation, detectives learned that Michael owned a Ford F-150 truck. Using the alarm button on the set of keys, they were able to unlock the door to the truck as they approached it. And on the video camera, there were dozens of photos of, guess what? Michael's family. Proof that the camera belonged to Michael and also the set of keys that matched his truck. I need to talk to Maria because Maria's in some trouble. Okay, you in some trouble, girl. We need to talk, girl. You in trouble. You going straight to jail. Do not pass go. You do not collect $200. You going to jail. Do I have to preach for you? Crime scene investigators also discovered a pair of men's blue jeans in the hamper that was at the apartment. When they analyzed the jeans, they found microscopic pieces of glass fiber. So they found these jeans that had fiberglass on it. And within the fiberglass were tiny air pockets shaped like footballs, an indication that the fiber had been in the fire and gotten charred. Next, forensic scientists compared the fiberglass found on Michael's body to the fiberglass found on the jeans. And you already know. It was an identical match. Y'all don't take this woman to prison. Investigators brought Maria back in for questioning, as they should. During Maria's interrogation, detectives asked her who the pair of jeans belonged to. Of course, she initially tried to deny it and say she doesn't know who the jeans belong to or how they got the jeans or how the jeans got there in her hamper, and she's not sure what they're talking about. But after investigators threatened to bring charges against her, then she cracked. She cracked like Humpty Dumpty on Easter Day, y'all.
Well, it's like I went into an apartment. And he's just like, well, somebody was there when I got there. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, they saw me. It's like, so, it's like I had to do what I had to do. I'm like, what are you talking about?
What did you think in your mind that he did?
That he had hurt somebody, that he had done what he did to this boy. I don't like to say the four-letter word.
I need you to say the word.
That he had taken this person's life.
She admitted to having a man staying with her in her apartment with her 3-year-old son. This man she had met online. Ladies, come on now. Really? I know it's difficult to be a single mom. Well, I don't know personally because I'm not a single mom, but I know it has to be difficult to be a single mom and dating and all that, but have some standards for yourself, and if not for yourself, for your child. Like, no. I told y'all to stop that online dating stuff. Get off these dang dating apps. Y'all still doing it out there. Y'all need to stop. If I was a single mom, I would have even higher standards than I have now because I have my child. So I'm just confused. Like, can we get some standards, ladies? The man was 26-year-old Joe Luna. And he, of course, was no stranger to police. He had a criminal record, y'all, dating back for God knows how long. This man was a very violent individual. And she claimed to not have known about his past whatsoever, which I find rather odd. I think she's lying. I think she did know, and she let him into her home regardless because she was desperate. Like, why? When police did a background check on Joe Luna, they discovered that he had a very lengthy criminal history and had recently been released after serving 5 years for aggravated assault on a police officer and carjacking. Joe Luna was also wanted for a list of home invasions that were strikingly similar to the Michael Andrade case. One woman saved 2 cigarette butts that she found in her garage after the attack. Neither her nor her partner smoked, or anyone that they knew who smoked had been over that day. So this woman collected the 2 cigarette butts and saved them and gave them to police. Those cigarette butts were entered into forensic evidence. The DNA from the saliva on the cigarette butts were compared to Joe Luna's DNA, and it matched. Of course it did. This was the forensic evidence investigators needed to link Joe Luna to Michael Andrade's murder. They now knew that Joe Luna was in fact the one and only killer. Prosecutors theorized that Joe Luna was hiding out at his girlfriend's apartment complex because he had a warrant out for his arrest for all the other crap he had done. And because he was hiding out there, he couldn't really leave the apartment complex. So he got bored, and so he decided to enter into Michael Andrade's home. I'm telling you, idle hands is the devil's workshop or something like that. I don't know how it goes. They believe that he entered Michael Andrade's home. That's when Michael woke up and saw Joe Luna, terrified. They began to struggle, and he probably threatened Michael, tied him up, and then strangled him to death because Michael had saw his face. When detectives brought him in for interrogation, he denied everything. He said he had nothing to do with Michael Andrade's death. Of course he did. He also said that, he wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. He denied, and he kept proclaiming his innocence, saying that he didn't do anything wrong.
I don't kill nobody, period. I don't ever see myself in a position where I would have to do something like that.
But when faced with the forensic evidence, he changed his tune. In open court, he basically admitted to the fact that he enjoyed doing it. He said he did it for the adrenaline rush. He just liked seeing the look on people's faces when he dominated them. At the end of the day, Joe Luna did not want to prolong his fate, and he pled guilty to the crime and asked for the death penalty. Thanks to forensic science and some great detective work, in March of 2006, Joe Luna got his wish. He was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. What did you guys think about this case and my makeup look? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you like videos like these, you can check out some of my other videos. I'll leave them linked on the screen right here. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please share because it really helps me out. And I'll see you guys next time with another true crime story time. Bye!